This episode is brought to you by Portland Distro. If you like underground music, movies, and more, go to portlanddistro.com for licensed merch, vinyl, CDs, and more. Plug in the discount code 10OFF, TENOFF, for a 10% discount at portlanddistro.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show this week. You're listening to the Everything Went Black podcast. This week, please welcome John Adams and Toby Poser of the Adams Family Wonder Wheel Productions. They brought you this past year's Hellbender, The Deeper You Dig, and some other shorts that might be of interest to you. And for those of you who listen to Necromaniacs, you will not be strangers to the Adams Family. This time around, John and Toby join me. Zelda is not able to make this conversation, and she's a busy young lady doing a bunch of really cool stuff. But this time around, we talk a little bit about films. We focus a lot on music. And in some of my other conversations with these guys, I picked up that they are also fans of a lot of the same music that I like, a lot of the same things that have influenced me. So we decided to have a talk primarily about music, and it was a lot of fun, as usual. There's a cool playlist that was put together, and you guys can find the playlist either by following me on Spotify or by checking out the show notes at everythingwentblackmedia.com, where I post all that stuff. A lot of you guys don't know there's a website out there called everythingwentblackmedia.com. Before we get going, I want to thank everyone who has joined our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can support the podcast and get access to a bunch of really cool bonus material. Whole other shows are existing on the Patreon platform. There's a weird fiction show that Ralph and I do called Long Shadows, and we discuss a lot of our weird fiction, the way it crosses over into films, compare and contrast philosophies of certain stories by Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, Thomas Ligotti, you name it. We're just getting started on that, and it's a lot of fun, so let's get into it. Now, of course, Everything Went Black exists in the greater universe, along with my podcasting brethren, the four horsemen of the podcasting apocalypse, and that would be Horror Wolf 666 coming at you on Monday. Tuesday brings you into the necrosphere. Wednesday is Everything Went Black. Thursday is Horror Mania with the Necromaniacs podcast that I co-host with Mike Scodato and Jeff Kashid.
Nice. You got a nice clean kitchen.
You know, the last time we spoke, you commented on that. I really appreciate
it. Tells you something about ours. Man.
Yeah, exactly. I see a kitchen like that. I'm like, how? I guess he doesn't cook.
Sorry.
No, I do cook. I cook a lot, actually. I mean, especially during the pandemic, is, here by myself and, I like cooking.
Anyway, it's a nice looking kitchen. I like it.
Well, thanks. So since the last time we spoke, a lot's happened. And I checked out your appearance on The Last Drive-In. I'm a huge fan of Joe Bob's. And normally I watch those live, but I was away, so I had to wait to come back home. And then, binged a bunch of episodes. And that must have been a real trip, like, meeting up with a legend like that. And, it was interesting to see the show. The show feature Hellbender, which I thought that was great.
It was crazy, right out of left field. We couldn't believe it when they asked. And you're right, the guy's a legend. And Darcy's wonderful too, and their whole crew that puts that show on are a fantastic group of people. So it was incredibly generous.
And working with John Brennan and the Big Feet, it was so much fun doing like our version of their song, and then they're doing their version of our song. It was pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And but the funny thing is that to a lot of people, Hellbender is probably a new thing. And anyone who's listening to this podcast should check out the Necromaniacs episode that we did together about Hellbender. But you guys are probably way past that by now because I follow you on social media, and you guys already have like another film that's either wrapped up or wrapping up. So let's, I know you probably can't talk too much about it, but you guys move fast. That's all I got to say about that.
We
stay on our toes.
And we love it. Up. Yep, we're wrapping it up. It's called Where the Devil Roams. It's about a family that's on the carnival circuit, and they're kind of artistic serial killers, and they run into some problems, and it's up to the daughter to sew the pieces back together and keep the family unit thriving. So it's a cross between Bonnie and Clyde meets Frankenstein with the grapes of wrath thrown in there for beauty.
Some John Steinbeck, that's a good reference in there.
Yeah.
So is it sort of a road movie too?
It all takes place in the Catskills, so it takes place like it's kind of like we've invented kind of like a horror carnival circuit that takes place in the winter. So it's not we have a 1931 Chevy that stars in the film, and it is beautiful and is so cinematic. So in a sense, yes, it's a road film, but it's more a country road film, and it never leaves the mountains of the Catskills, the movie.
Looking forward to that. You guys have any idea when that's gonna, be released, or any kind of, time frame for any of that?
No, I think we're gonna be editing it this like early fall. So hopefully it'll be done being edited by then, and then we'll just see where it flies.
Yep.
Just as a summary, because some people that listen to this show have not probably been familiar with our episode on Necromaniacs, but just as a quick rundown, you guys are a filmmaking family. I personally am a huge fan of your films. I was introduced to you guys with The Deeper You Dig, and then went back and I saw Knucklehead Jack.
Yeah, no.
Wait, is that did I get that wrong?
That's great. We're gonna rename it that.
Knucklehead Jack. And then Hellbender came out, and I was an early adapter of that, and I've been a big fan, and I'm following your career. So that's just to give everybody a little intro. And this episode, we covered all the film stuff on Necromaniacs, but one of the things that seemed to stick out was I caught on really quickly, especially in Hellbender, that music plays a big part in in the creative process. And you made some references in our earlier conversations about the inspiration with the way that you attack filmmaking being similar to the Ken Mode SST mindset. And right then and there, I felt like, okay, these are music people. So what's the extent that you guys are into music? John, I know that you are a musician, and there's bands, and Toby, I know you're a big fan. So how important is music to you guys?
Music changed my life. And I think probably the same band that I'm going to guess changed yours, because you're a big Everything Went Black, fan. And so, and here we go. I wore that just for you. But I was, 14 years old, and people were listening to Journey and, Def Leppard and stuff like that. And I felt like I didn't really love that stuff. And I felt kind of out there, wondering like why I didn't like music. And then suddenly this kid rolls in from Chapel Hill and plays me a band called the Angry Samoans. And it was a song it started and finished, I think, in 26 seconds. And that moment, like I can zero in on that moment as integral to everything that my life became, because it showed me that there's life outside of the box, and there's people outside of the box that I want to be with. And so music is massively important to me, always has been, but it really took a hard turn when I was 14 years old and I heard punk rock.
Yeah, no, I guess I'm pretty polytheistic when it comes to music. I've growing up, I grew up in the 80s, and my brother was really, I was introduced to punk rock through my brother, we lived in Baltimore, so he he was really he worked at a place called The Loft in Baltimore, which had some really great shows that came through. And so but then, you know, a lot of my friends were listening to Madonna, and then I had some who'd listened to, you know, Bauhaus and Talking Heads. You know, I just started out kind of loving everything, except I've never really gravitated towards country. And I'm still kind of like that. I'm sort of like people and music. I like a lot of different people. I like a lot of different music, but I love, love, love to listen. And it's really cool being partnered with John because he's constantly playing music. So I feel like I'm like fly on the wall. And sometimes I get to buzz around his head a little.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the cooler things about the Hellbender, I'm going to call it the Hellbender Project, because, you know, it's a film, a horror film, a folk horror film, but it's also, on a larger sense, this creative outlet that includes like a band, right? And that music, the Hellbender music, has infused itself into the film. So it is kind of this, you know, project, if you will. And Toby, you play in that band, and John, are you also involved in that too? Because I know Zelda and Toby appear in the film, you know, in the band, but you know, what was the sort of germination of that? How'd that come together, the band, and you know, all that sort of stuff?
It really came together because when the kids were born, I was in bands. I was in punk party bands, and Lulu used to come to all of our shows, and then she wanted to be in a band with me. So we started a band called the Hot Roses, and the Hot Roses did gigs, and we had fun, and we played music together. But as Lulu grew older, she wanted to play soccer, and she wanted to do some other things. And so immediately, as soon as Lulu stepped off the stage, Zelda was like, well, I'll just take that microphone right from her. Thank you. And so we started a band, me and Zelda, called Kid California. And that band lasted quite a while. We did a bunch of shows and wrote a lot of music together, you know, but it was more heavily influenced by like what I liked. But as Zelda grew older, she really had a bigger influence on what she wanted to do. And she was playing drums in our band called Kid California. And she said one day, hey, I really would just like to sing. And so that changed a lot of things, where she really had a bigger input on how the songs were written and what kind of music we were playing. And so we really kind of set out in the desert looking for our sound and looking for what we wanted to do. And I listened to the music she brought to the table. I kept bringing the music I liked to the table. And Hellbender, the movie, really grew out of a video that we were shooting of a song that we'd really written together. She at the time was really into Billie Eilish, and she was like, let's do something kind of Billie Eilish like. And I really love the production value on Billie Eilish's music. And so that was a fun challenge for me to kind of like listen to her stuff and be like, okay, how can I integrate what I like with that? So we came up with this song called Black Sky. We were out in the Oaks in California shooting a video. And when we got the footage back, we realized like, oh, this needs to be a movie. This is beautiful. And so really that video inspired us to set the wheels in motion to make the movie Hellbender. And once Hellbender really came into existence, Toby started singing more in the band, and Lulu was home a lot more, so she started singing, and we became a four-piece again, and that was really cool. So, you know,
but I have to jump in here. Let me just say, John is like the monkey, you know, that monkey toy that's like doing like the cymbals and banging on a drum and like tapping its head and chewing bubblegum and blowing bubbles. John, that's like John. And so he's so modest, but he, you know, with our bands, he's writing the music. I mean, Zelda often contributes ideas with that too, but John's kind of, yeah, he's the monkey. He's kind of like doing it all. And then we kind of come in and Zelda will lay something down. And then Lulu and I like to put something over that because we kind of, the three of us are related. So our voices kind of go together in a way.
They really go together great.
But John's, you know, he's writing it, he's playing it. And Yeah.
I mean, with the movie Hellbender, I secretly wanted to make a musical. Now, I'm not a big fan of musicals. I don't like musicals, but I told my old bass player, I was like, secretly what I really want to do is I want to make a musical, but I don't want anyone to call it a musical. I want it to be driven by music because music's so fun. And having these two in a band together visually does so much for their story in Hellbender. And it does so much for their characters. And then lyrically, it helps drive the story. So it was just perfect for Hellbender. And because it went so well, we're actually integrating our music again, but in a totally different way. Like, we're not using the same bag of tricks, total different bag of tricks. But our next movie, When the Devil Roams, is filled with our music. And now I think we really have a distinct sound, because the four of us now have really gotten used to everything. And these songs have a very distinct sound.
That's the odd thing about I relate to what you were saying about, I love music, I love films, but I'm not a musical. I'm not a fan of musicals, which is strange because you would think those two things would sort of lock group together and work. And when I watched Hellbender, the musical aspects jump off like right away. And I was like, this might actually be one of the first times that a musical has actually entertained me and resonated with me. Because I was like, this is actually really cool because it's like, yeah, there's these two ladies, they're out in the woods, they love music. And that's what I would do. I mean, if I was in the two characters' shoes, I would start a band, and the fact that she wants to play a gig is sort of what opens the doorway into her crossing over into the larger world, and the whole thing just really makes sense, And any guys out there who are listening, who haven't listened to Necromaniacs, Shudder is featuring Hellbender right now, so you can watch it, and definitely check that out. And if you don't know what we're talking about or any of this stuff, is like, oh, this sounds like a really cool movie, definitely go check it out on Shudder. But yeah, that's the first time I think I've actually really enjoyed like a musical. And then there's interludes within the film that have like this montage like sort of feel to it. But the whole thing really carries a narrative, and it was one of the most unique like viewing experiences I think I've had, really. I mean, you guys shared with me a screener of it way in the beginning. And I was like, wow, this is like really interesting because it combines, not only film, but horror films. There's like that woodsy, like folk horror stuff, the kind of pagan witchcraft aspect, which is something I also really, appreciate. And then of course, like heavy rock music, there's like a real heavy, like Sabbathy kind of thing going on with the Hellbender band, you're playing the Lemmy bass and all that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
So
you got to play a Rickenbacker. Once Lemmy played, once he slung that over his shoulder, we all have to.
Hey,
yeah.
Speaking of, you could do a great cover of "Killed by Death."
Oh wow, you heard that?
Yeah.
Oh great, thank you. Yeah, that's I appreciate that. I mean, who doesn't love Motorhead? You know what I mean? It's like there's certain bands that you just like, And so I guess you guys are Motorhead fans too, then.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I saw Motorhead, and they were wonderful. And I saw them with the Cro-Mags, and
I saw that same tour.
Oh yeah, with SOD.
Yep. Well, actually, I saw it in Boston, and it wasn't. SOD was not on that particular leg of or that weren't on that show. It was
was though, right?
What was that?
Was Wendy O. Williams?
Yeah, Wendy O was on it. Yeah. But it was Cro-Mags and Motorhead and Wendy O. Yeah. Amazing. It's funny. Like I interviewed Harley Flanagan from the Cro-Mags like a few years ago, and he was talking about that as being like one of the high points of his, being in the Cro-Mags. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw you guys on that tour. And he's like, really? He's like, that's a long time ago, man. And I'm like, yeah, I saw you guys at the Channel in Boston, and he's like, wow, that's a long time ago. But that's like, really that show was like, aside from being one of the loudest shows I've ever been to, really made me think about music in a different way. Because the Cro-Mags were like hardcore band, right, with metal influences,
Right.
And Motorhead at that particular time, I had no idea what to say about them because they were like these like scary looking biker guys. They had a dude shredding these like solos. They were for the time they were super fast, but they were like a rock band, you know?
Right.
And it just kind of, I think that was one of the most, formative things for me is to see them play because it was like, yeah, you can kind of put all this stuff together and make something cool. You don't have to just be like, all right, we're a heavy metal band or a rock band or a punk band or a hardcore band. You can just kind of push everything together, you know?
Yeah, they ran their own set of rules. That's what turned me on about it too. I mean, like Motorhead was kind of like, even though they weren't a punk band, all of us punks revered them like as kind of the kings of it. And I think probably because they started in the mid 70s, so like even before there was punk, they really were punks. And then the heaviness and the quickness that they brought to music really played out in the hardcore scene. And then obviously hardcore kind of boomeranged back into it with bands like the Cro-Mags who added that heavy metal element. And then you have like, Suicidal Tendencies throwing in the metal. And so it's like, but in fact, Motorhead was already doing that in the beginning.
Yeah, totally. And that's the thing. It's like, you'd even read about some writers would say that Motorhead were like a new wave of British heavy metal band, which is like, to me, like way off base. To me, that's like bands like, early Iron Maiden and like Tigers of Pantang and, bands like that. And Motorhead were just too gnarly for that,
I agree. I never ever thought of them as metal. In fact, I don't even know what I would call them because their image was so interesting. But their music is just singular. I mean, that's the thing about Motorhead, especially when they were a trio, and then right around when we saw them, they were a 4-piece. But and then they kind of got into a more polished kind of metal sound, like but in the beginning, man, that stuff is just incredible. And I think also something cool about Motorhead is they lived the life. There was nothing ungenuine about them. It wasn't like they put on clothes to get on stage. They just wore the clothes they're wearing on stage, and their teeth were knocked out, and they were living it, and that you could just feel that, you could smell that.
Literally, because if you end up wearing the same clothes that you play in, you definitely start developing an aroma as a result of that, for sure. So one of the coolest things that I like to do with this particular podcast is I like to put these playlists together, and you meet people, and it's always interesting when you give someone free reign to just put together something without like any kind of criteria to see what they come up with. And so you guys came up with some really cool stuff, and some of the stuff I'm not familiar with, which I think is awesome because now I have some new stuff to dive into. So actually,
yeah, I don't know what Toby did. I'm really interested to see which ones Toby picked.
There might be a surprise on there. Actually,
I bet you there is. I bet it's going to be a jazzy number. We'll see.
Well, let's start with Toby's list. The only criteria is you got to pick 5 songs. And you guys, so we have a nice hour of material approximately to everyone to listen to. Excuse me. So Toby, you want to start your run down your list and talk about the bands and why you picked these songs and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think the first one I had on there was Big Business, and that's the song Focus Pocus.
Ooh, nice.
And that's the song that kind of turned us on to them, circa 2000. I think that came out maybe 2006, but when maybe. Anyway, these guys, so it's like a duo, you got someone on bass and someone on drums, and they often collaborate with the Melvins, and we saw them actually collaborate. They played, and then they were playing with the Melvins on the same night at Warsaw in Brooklyn. Like, I don't know, maybe that was like 2007 or 8. But these guys just like, oh my God, it's just like if you could like, if I could imagine what a sound of like a rock wizard sounded like on a top of a mountain, like I just love the guy's voice, and then the two. I love kind of drum bass duos. I like drum guitar duos too, but I love duos and I love drums. In fact, there will be like a thread between the most of the songs that I picked, probably because they just have crunching drums, you know. So yeah, so Big Business. This song, Focus Pocus, is just like, take my advice, don't come any closer. You know, it's just like, it's so good. It's the kind of song that I'll just play on repeat, like a big nerd. Do you have any songs like that where you're just like, I gotta listen to it again? And then
Oh
you
yeah.
just play it on repeat like 10 times till you get to the grocery store, you know? Do you remember when we were turned on to them?
I don't know years, but I remember when they came across, and it was just phenomenal because, it's just a sick, driving, distorted bass, and this drummer that's just playing out of the Darkest Tribe. It's great. It's just two tracks that are phenomenal.
Yeah, and the song itself kind of sounds like a Western.
Yeah.
Like if a Western was
Yeah.
like metal, you know? It's like, it's got that kind of like almost, you can imagine that, like if Ennio Morricone was making a movie about Excalibur, he would have this as his theme song. Are you familiar? Do you know that song? And
Yeah, I'm familiar with them. Also, I want to also point out that they're a two-piece, similar to the way Hellbender is portrayed in the film Hellbender. Bass and drums. So that when I saw that on your list, I was like, oh yeah, of course, that makes sense.
yeah.
And they were Carp. Like before they were Big Business,
One of them,
they were called Carp.
Carp. I think the drummer, or the bass player.
I think
Carp.
the bass player.
Bass player was Carp. Yeah. I forget his name. The drummer's name is Cody. Anyway, yeah. So that's my first song on the list. Should I move on to the next? Do you want to keep talking?
Yeah. Well, just real quick, I've been interested in them because I was a fan of Carps too. Actually, I remember checking those guys out like in the '90s, and then when I found out about Big Business, I thought that was pretty cool too. And yeah, I've seen the Melvins play with those guys in the band too. So that's pretty interesting. The next band on your list, actually, I'm starting to become a fan of them as a result of you putting this on this list. So yeah, let's move on to that band.
Oh, I'm trying to remember the order that I did it. Does it start with an F?
Yep. No, it's Aptera.
Oh, Aptera. Oh, but that's the same.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about these guys. So Aptera is this like multicultural band out of Berlin, but they're a four-piece. I'm familiar with the drummer Sarah Nadorf, and she's from the United States, based in Berlin. She runs the Final Girls Berlin Film Festival. She's one of the runners there, and she plays drums. And then they've got they've also got people from Belgium, Germany, and Italy. And these four women, just fucking slaughter your ears. I mean, I got turned on to them when I was in Berlin at that festival, and then I've been following them ever since. And they just came out with a new album called You Can't Bury What Still Burns. And it's just great. And then a lot of their themes are the song I wanted to talk about was Voice of Thunder, which is the first song on that new album, You Can't Bury What Still Burns. But a lot of their themes are like mythological, so of course I'm digging that too. And Aptera itself, the word Aptera is a place in Greece. I think it's on Crete, where it's the original location. It's the location where the sirens battled the muses. So in Greek mythology, this battle went out there, and the story goes. I'm going to just go on this tangent because
go ahead. That's what this is all about. So
they battled it out in this place called Aptera, and I'll get back to what that word means. And the sirens, who were like these human-like creatures, and they had like scales like fish and wings like birds, and they of course had wonderful voices, like them from the Odyssey, and they would lure men to their deaths in the depths of the sea. And they were kind of known for they were very backward thinking. Like they would promise glory, but a lot of it was they would entice people with past glory. When people who always want to capture that past glory. So they had a lot of hubris when they were like, okay, we're going to challenge the muses, who are like the goddesses of, art, science, and creativity. in literature to a sing off. So they're like, yeah, the sirens are like, yeah, we can sing, and then we'll battle off with the muses, and they totally lost because the sirens were singing about kind of like past glory and thinly veiled destruction, and the muses were singing about like progression and divinity and prosperity and all that kind of shit. Anyway, the muses won. I kind of probably would have voted for the sirens, but in essence, the sirens lost, and so then they lost their wings. They lost the feathers on their wings, so they turned white, and then they just like fell to the depths of the sea, and that's where they kind of lived out their fate. And that word aptera means, I think it means no wings, and yeah. So I think it means like no wings or something. So that's the background. So this band Aptera, these four women sing about a lot of like cool mythological shit, but their music is just this sludgy, doomy, crunchy, heavy shit that I just so in love with. And this song Voice of Thunder, you got these crunchy drums, and the lead singer is just, she's like a banshee, and it kind of has this great build, and I'm always about the build of the drums, but they're really proficient players. They're wonderful on their instruments. Have you?
That's great. I downloaded the record off of Bandcamp after I previewed all this stuff, and yeah, it's like this Sabbathy kind of Celtic Frost kind of vibe to it, and the vocals are what really grabbed me. It's like the super aggressive kind of like epic like sounding vocal thing going on. I really dug it.
Yeah, Aptera. Yeah, out of Berlin. I'd love to go. I'd love to see them. I think they're playing right now.
Are they like an independent, like completely independent too? Because I didn't see like any kind of label information about them. I think that they might just be like an independent band.
I believe so. Yeah.
That makes it even cooler, actually.
Is Ripple? Ripple Records is coming to mind. I don't know if that's who's putting it out, or if I'm not sure. Yeah, I know they had like a really cool EP, which also had some amazing music, and that's what I was turned on to in 2020. But this is their first fully formed album. Yeah, and the drummer's been talking to me about collaborating on a video. So I don't know, that might be fun to do. She actually wrote us because she wanted to use images from Hellbender, and so for the last song on that album, Nepenthes. So I don't know what's gonna happen, but it'd be fun to kind of join forces with them.
Yeah, the imagery from Hellbender I could see fitting pretty well with their music, honestly, definitely.
Yeah.
So the next one on your list is the F band.
Yeah, okay. The Fu Manchu.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and that's the Let Me Out is the song. I just love that song. And again, the drums and the lead up. I mean, I'm a sucker for like a good lead, and that just builds and then explodes my head, and then the end, the let me out, it's just I don't know, like I'll start singing the song if you're not careful. But yeah, I love, but the guitars in that band too, they've always got it like full frontal.
That's there was that, well, they've been a band since like the 80s, I think. I think they started like in the early 80s. Yeah, like lingering around. And then I found out about them, like I think that Man's Ruin 7-inch that came out in the late 90s, I think, because I used to collect all those because they had like great, Frank Kozik artwork on it. And, some of the bands I really dug would put records out on Man's Ruin. So I just ended up buying all the 10 inches when they came out. And that's how I found out about Fu Manchu. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. It's like, bands like Caius and Nebula. It's all sort of, do you like bands like that too? Like, Caius and Nebula and all that sort of kind of stoner rock.
Well, stoner rock crew, those changed. I mean, we're heavily influenced by at least the guitar fuzz sound of all those bands, and like the very first Queens of the Stone Age album to me is like the blueprint for perfect stoner rock.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I even like their later stuff too. I mean, they expanded their sound a lot more, and it almost has like this kind of like David Bowie like vibe to like their later, Queen's records that are like, different instruments, and the vocals are obviously a little bit different, but some of that stuff I think is some of the best like, non-extreme like rock music that's being made, really.
Yeah, I'm really attracted to a lot of that. Backtracking a second, something I only realized not long ago was that the original, that the drummer from the Melvins, was it the original that he played on like the Bleach, demos for Nirvana, that he introduced Dave Grohl to those guys.
Right.
I had like never known that connection. That was kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, Dale Crover. Yeah.
Crover,
yeah. That guy was, I guess, like Kurt Cobain and the two main Melvins guys. I guess they were from the same town in Washington.
Yeah, I know they were playing in Aberdeen too. Like I think they were from like Montgomery and then moved to Aberdeen. But anyway, that was non sequitur. Backtrack.
That is interesting. So wait, Chad Channing didn't play on Bleach?
He played on the like recording, but on the demos,
understood.
Grover, yeah.
Cool.
Which is pretty fun. Should I go on to the fourth?
Sure.
Let me give me a clue. What was the?
Begins with a T.
Oh yeah.
And they're Scandinavian.
Okay. So this is a band that I threw in there because it's another song that I listen on repeat on my way to the fucking grocery store. I don't even know if I'm going to say the name of their band right. Turbo Negro.
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it. I don't know if that's the right way either. Honestly, that's how I say it.
I'm a total newbie to them, so I'm admitting I'm like this, total newbie here. But I'm really in, and I think they slightly predate the Hives. They're from Norway, but that song, Back to Dungaree High, I can't stop listening to the drums. It's just like you lead in with these drums, and then you just like you're gonna get there, and it's just like going out to the top of a roller coaster, and you can't wait to go down, and they're kind of great, punchy, driven singing. What can you tell me about them? Because I don't know much.
Well, I know they're Scandinavian. They're from Norway. They're. I'm not overly familiar with them. A lot of my friends really like them. I've never seen them live, and I know recently one of the members passed away.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, and it's like rock and roll. A little bit more aggressive rock and roll with like a tongue-in-cheek sort of vibe to their lyrics, and they're a fun sort of band, and the stuff I've heard I like. And what comes to mind is there's another band called Helicopters from Sweden.
I was just gonna say,
yeah, that reminds me a little bit of them. Helicopters are a little bit less like fun, I guess, but I think some of the guys from Entombed, some of the members of Entombed are also in Helicopters. And but yeah, it's just like that rock and roll, like hard driving, kind of upbeat sort of stuff. Maybe like a Stooges influence, possibly.
Yeah. A shinier version of all those bands, at least I think, is Danko Jones. Do you ever listen?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, because it's straight rock and roll. It's not punk. I don't think of that stuff as punk. It's not metal. It's rock and roll. And Danko Jones is rock and roll, but it's
with a
very,
sense of humor too.
Yeah, but it's very well produced. Turbo Negro and Helicopters are a little dirtier. It's more recorded in a room. It's like, so.
And like punks like Turbo Negro. Like you'll see some kid with like like a Turbo Negro pin on his like leather jacket with like a Misfit skull on it or something like that.
I was just gonna say that. There must be like an album cover or something with that. You're so right.
Yeah, so it's they're like in a way they're like Motorhead. Like they're a rock and roll band for punks, in a way, I guess. So
yeah. Well, I have a lot to explore with them, but that's just one song that kind of sticks out for me that I really love. And I'm like a kid. It's fun it's just so much fun to get introduced to new music. And I mean, you could be 90 and still be introduced to amazing music. I hope I'm 90 and still jiving on music that people are introducing to me.
Well, our daughter, 23-year-old daughter, just sent us a great band called Slow Mosa. Have you listened to them?
No.
It's if you like the original Queens of the Stone Age album, it's kind of like as if like let's pretend that Queens of the Stone Age took a right after that album. Well, these guys took that and they took a left, and it's really wonderful. I couldn't. It's so cool. Like, you know, it is in the vein of Caius and all those, but there's something original about it. It's not like a knockoff. It's pretty cool. If you get a chance, spin some Slow Mosa.
Slow Mosa.
Horses is a great tune to start with.
I almost was going to talk about that today, but it's hard when you're picking 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Oops. Yeah, I stepped out of line.
No, I definitely like, I'm always looking for new music. I got, people that get to be like, in our age group, I think, oh yeah, I only listen to, whatever stuff from the 80s or 90s. And, I don't, nothing new is good, and I'm totally opposite of that. I mean, I'm always, obsessing about new bands or looking to find new stuff. And, I have a friend who doesn't watch any new movies. I'm like, that's insane to me. That's like, that's like completely, doesn't make any sense at all to me,
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. My friends, like I'm on a bunch of Facebook groups with friends from high school, and it's like we're, and I love it, but they're still rehashing which Iron Maiden album is best. And it's like, it's fun, but I'm kind of like, and then I love it when my daughter sends me Slow Mosa, because I'm like, good, because I don't need to hear Run to the Hills anymore. I love it, but.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go see Iron Maiden when they come through again, but like, that's not all that I'm about though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I mean. There was something beautiful when we were kids. If you didn't hear it on the radio, you'd have to get turned on by your friends. Someone would slip you like a little cassette that you had to kind of use your little pencil to rewind or rewind the tape when it got out. There was something romantic about the hands-on experience of that. Like, people, that's, there was something so communicative about how you learned about music back then. But then there's something beautiful about today too, where like I wouldn't have really known about that Turbo Negro if I hadn't maybe heard a playlist or been on like a radio for I don't know what
on
what I would have heard or something, but like some station that just brought it up. And so that's wonderful. I mean, I'm grateful for that, but okay.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I do these playlists is because, people check out the show and it's like, I always get a lot of good feedback about, oh yeah, you guys turned me on to this new band that I'm into now. And, but I actually still, if you hold on one second,
Mike,
for my close friends, I still make cassette tapes for them.
Nice.
You win the prize. You are cool.
That is cool.
That is great.
Because that's like, I don't know, the tactile, it's cool to send something in the mail and it's handwritten, and you draw some cool stuff on there. And then it's like a special thing,
I felt it right in my heart when you just showed me those things. Cause that's like what you would give people you like. You're like,
yeah,
I'm going to turn you on to this. And they put it in your hand. And and you see their handwriting. What do they doodle on it? How did they title it? And then you listen to it. It's like it's like a gift wrap oral, like prize and I remember I made John a mixtape, when I was starting to dig him. It's like the greatest, gift of love note that you can make, that's cool that you do it.
So there's one final entry onto your list here.
Yeah.
It begins with a beat.
Yeah, this song is called Rocks and Bricks.
Oh God!
By Banana Fish Zero, and it's one of my favorite songs of theirs. But there's a lot to talk. How could we not talk about my own? I'm his biggest groupie.
That's awesome. That's so fun.
But it's
you always
really
supported
fun.
That song. When I wrote it, you were
song.
like, "That's a good one."
And we put it in one of our movies. It's in Knuckle Jack.
Yeah.
But it's a real thumper. And Banana Fish Zero was a trio out of New York City in the late '90s and very, very early 2000s. John played guitar and sang, and then we got Prince Hal on bass and a guy named Texas he was a great drummer, and these guys, what would you call ourselves, like party punk?
Yeah.
They they had a scene. And then the downtown New York scene, they're like dirty darlings. They
It was
really
fun.
were.
We were a
It
car
was
accident
wild.
waiting to stop happening.
People loved them. They still love them. They were fun as shit. But their music was great, and that song in particular, "Rocks and Bricks," is just dum 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 dum. It's just great. I like being hit over the head with a brick, and that song does it.
Awesome, Toby.
It's funny, John. You mentioned that you played in a party punk band, but you never mentioned the name of the band ever. And I was like, like in the past when we've spoken, and you're like, oh, I was in a party punk band, but I'm like, well, what band? But then I was like, I don't want to push him. Maybe, I know that sometimes I don't like talking about bands I used to play in. And like, it makes me uncomfortable. I was like, I don't want to make them uncomfortable. So,
No, I love the memories. That band was just a beautiful band that I love. I just am embarrassed to self promote, so I don't like self promote myself. But Toby just promoted me. That was so nice. That was so cool. And the other two characters in the band. I mean, we really lived this kind of. That was an honest life. We slept on the floors and we played the music and we wrote to party. Like that's what we were doing. But it was like good humored. It was like we definitely were there to have fun. We weren't tough guys. Actually we played naked, played in our like G strings because it would completely disarm like the just it would just completely disarm the whole house when these guys would walk out naked or in their G-string. Like everyone's like, oh my God, okay, well these guys are harmless, and then we proceed to have a great time, right? It was really fun.
Yeah,
just a great time.
It was fun to watch their gigs over the years. I mean, and
we were part of a very fun, wonderful New York scene. It was really thriving. It really started thriving kind of for whatever reason, like it really coalesced after 9/11. We were all in the city, we were all downtown, and these clubs just were filling out. I think everybody. Yeah, Continental, CB's, but really the Continental was so great, and CBGB's, Arlene's Grocery, all these really great theater, clubs, and we played up and down kind of the East Coast. It was so fun. It was just a great time.
I saw one of the videos. There was a music video that was shot at CBGB's, and it got me super nostalgic for that time, man. Like because I was at Bowery Electric a couple weekends ago. And that's like right next to where CB's used to be. And I was like, somewhere over here was CB's. Now it's like John Barbados,
Right.
Exactly. It's actually, if you really want to go to CB's, you have to go to Kennedy Airport, and there's a store, the CBGB store. And it's so funny, But yeah, it was really lucky that those guys filmed that video there because it's nice to see it. You can smell it.
Totally. You can
Once
smell
again,
it. Going down those steep stairs, you're lucky nobody died. Going down backstage,
and I'm
all
sure
the
they
way
did.
down backstairs in the gnarly bathrooms. It was so many good things happened there, and Continental was my favorite, of course. Did you ever play Continental? Trigger?
I haven't never played the Continental, but I played CB's like tons of times over the years in different bands, and I've been there a bunch of times. Like I've been to the Continental to see shows, but I never played there actually.
The Continental was kind of what was cool about the Continental was CB's was famous. It was like you got to play CB's. Somebody in Istanbul had heard of CB's. Same size. But then there's the Continental that just was very genuine and real hard. And the owner was this tough, great character named Trigger, and it was
with the hat, right?
Yes, with the hat.
Yeah.
There you go. And it was I just loved the Continental because there was no pretense to it. It was just a black box with an excellent sound man who actually the sound man's name was Noel, and now he does sound for Dinosaur Jr. He's been he's been doing their sound for like 10 years after he left the Continental. So he's
great. I don't think that place is it still there?
Nope, we got knocked down.
Right?
All the rock. The only place left that you would from the original days, and it's not even from the original days, is Arlene's Grocery, which really popped up in the 90s, and that's all that's left.
Did you ever go to you remember Coney Island High?
Oh yeah. She
that
used
was
to go there all the time. We played Coney.
Yep. Green Door, and Yeah.
That was a cool club.
It was a fun time to be in New York.
That was more of a glam rock kind of scene. Like, like each one of them had a kind of particular kind of feel to it. That was definitely like a little more glamorous, a little cooler, degeneration kind of thing. It was cool.
We used to love Brownies too.
Yes.
Like, we heard a lot of great stuff at Brownies. Brownies was fun.
That was fantastic. That was high quality shit right there. Yeah.
They had a pretty eclectic amount of different types of bands play there. Like I saw Voivod play there one time actually.
Right. Yeah.
And Voivod played there, and like I don't know, like Fetus was there one time. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
There was this booker there named Chris who had like excellent taste. You know what I mean? And it was very hard to get into Brownies, but if you got in and you brought a crowd, you could go back. But yeah, we always saw amazing bands there, like Thin Lizard Dawn, who, I don't know if you've ever heard them. They're terrific, but they were one of those bands that was signed to a major label. They threw it against the wall. It didn't stick quite right, so they didn't push it. But when I go back and listen to Thin Lizard Dawn, I just think the musicianship is exceptional. It's so good.
Oh my God. And yeah, the voices there, they're incredible. Did you ever go to the Trash Bar in Williamsburg?
Yeah, definitely.
That's a buddy of ours owns that, and
owned. That's gone.
Yeah, that's gone. Yep. Yeah, that whole part of that's way different now. And I used to live in Greenpoint.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's totally different. I used to live in Greenpoint, so I was always hanging out in Williamsburg all the time. Like you mentioned Warsaw. Like I've seen tons of shows at Warsaw. That's actually they used to have the Garage Shock there. I saw like the Electric Prunes played there one time.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just really cool.
I lived at 680 Manhattan in Greenpoint. Maybe we were neighbors.
I lived on Huron Street, so yeah.
Nice.
Not that far.
That's so cool.
Yeah. There was I was there. I had a thought, but it's gone. So okay. So that rounds out your list, Toby. And all this stuff's going to be in this Everything Went Black Spotify playlist extravaganza, and people will check it out. So John, let's move on to what you got in store for everybody here.
Okay, Toby might have to show me my list, but I do know that it started out with, which I've already mentioned, the song "You Stupid Jerk" by the Angry Samoans, and like as I said before, so I won't repeat myself long-windedly. It changed my life. It was fast, filled with curses. At that time, 1982 maybe, when I heard it, something like that. There was nothing like it. Like Triple X Records was putting out stuff that, none of us in upstate New York had ever come close to hearing, like curse words, and like it was kind of vile. It was a little scary. It was and it was like, actually looking back on it, it's unbelievably well produced. Like a lot of punk rock is really badly produced, but if you listen to that Angry Samoans, Back to Samoa. Oh, and the album cover. I remember the kid showed me the album cover, and I was like, it was art. It was art that I had never seen before. And it was also horror. It was like, what's that sea monster or whatever? It's like,
the Creature from the Black Lagoon,
yes,
right? Yeah, that's on the record cover.
Holding like King Kong's airplanes. You know what I mean? It was just like, and it was orange and blue, and it had that newsprint kind of touch to it. And I had never seen anything like it. And like I said before, people in my high school and in my school, they were listening to Lynyrd Skynyrd and 38 Special and Journey and stuff like that. And so when that came across, it changed my life. And I saw a poster that had the Angry Samoans on it. And it also had a band called Black Flag on it. And so my next thing was like, okay, I love this band, the Angry Samoans. I went down to the city and I was like, I'm going to go try to find this band Black Flag. I want, because they'll probably sound like the Angry Samoans. And so I got a band, Black Flag. I got Everything Went Black. And that again changed my life because it was not as well produced. It was super dirty, and somehow it seemed a little more dangerous. Like I thought that the Angry Samoans were dangerous, and then when I listened to Black Flag, that seemed really dangerous to me, and I freaking loved it. And so I got my friend to go with me to go see Black Flag at a place back in the 80s. I don't know why Black Flag was playing there. It was called the Reggae Lounge. And they played with the meat puppets who everyone threw bottles and spit at and, like were punching. But the more insults the meat puppets got, the longer they played. And I remember watching them the audience was, at this time, it was kind of New York Skins were on the rise. So there was like a very skinhead kind of vibe going on, even to see Black Flag. I'm not really sure why, but when Black Flag came on stage, and the first song, the place erupted into a beehive. And where I was from, I just had never seen anything like it. I didn't expect it. No one had, we were the first people to see that from where I was from. And my friend looked at me and he said, his name was Andy, and he looked at me when this place just erupted. People were falling off the balcony. Henry was, and they just were, we had never seen anything like it. My friend turned to me and he's like, we got to start a band.
Nice.
And it was just like, yes, we do. So, the next day we had punk haircuts. And, we were kind of the first to roll through our school like that. And it was really interesting because we were I wasn't a very big person at all. But going with that punk vibe, we just became these strange outcasts that people looked at like they just didn't know what to do with us. And it was a great feeling. And it really kind of set my entire life in motion in so many ways. So yeah, that was the Angry Samoans, You Stupid Jerk. Just great.
Yeah, that was a great record. I remember that. That's like, I think that's their first one, isn't it? Their first record?
No, they had one called Inside My Brain.
Oh, okay.
That's like an EP that's got You Stupid Asshole on it, and it's got Get Off the Air. It's really, really great. And I saw them play actually at CBGB's, and it was interesting because the place was quite empty, and it was strange because they were a real heroic band to me. They were huge to me, and I saw in the Village Voice that they were going to be playing at CBGB's, and I went down and it was pretty empty, and it was.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool to get to see them like that, but I remember being like, huh, that's so weird. These guys are amazing. So I think I don't know what my order is, but I know that my next band or another band that kind of is, okay. No, we're going to go with Donna Summer. I got to bring Donna Summer in only because it was a song that I heard as a kid. I can remember the heat of the summer, and it was a perfect song. Like when I heard it, it was perfect. And I went out and I got the 8-track, big ass 8-track. And my parents had an 8-track. It was the first 8-track I had ever bought, and I put it in. I just played Hot Stuff over and over and over and over. And my band covered Hot Stuff, Banana Fish Zero, and it was like when we ripped out Hot Stuff, the place always went crazy, no matter where we were. So it's one of those songs that just crosses over into heavy metal, people, punk rock, jazz. It doesn't matter. Like Hot Stuff is just a badass song, and she's a badass performer. So I had to mention that one because even though at that time I heard that disco sucked, I really thought, no, it doesn't. I really like this song.
Oh, I have several disco records in my collection from when I was a kid still, and it's legit music, really.
It's fantastic. I mean, now as an adult, I kind of reached back into the disco, and bands like Casey and the Sunshine Band, they're just like exceptional. Like the music, at least to me, I really still find it wonderful. Now I love Motorhead and all that, but Casey and the Sunshine Bands, that's some great stuff that really gets you moving.
I mean, obviously disco made a huge impact because Kiss has a disco record too.
Yeah.
They got Dynasty, which they're obviously trying to make it, disco music, so.
Yeah.
Well, Donna Summer wrote that song about you, John.
Oh, yeah, right. I think she wrote it about you, Toe, but we can talk about that after this podcast. Yeah, my next one is, basically these guys just changed. Whereas the Angry Samoans introduced me, like they were kind of the door to something, Black Flag and My War really defined a lot, because I was really into punk rock, I was really into fast hardcore, I was into the Circle Jerks. We were seeing the Circle Jerks, DOA, Angry Samoans, all these bands. We were just going every single time they played in the city, we would be there. And then suddenly Black Flag came back after playing us Gimme Gimme Gimme, and suddenly they come out with the heaviest shit I've ever heard in my life. And I remember when they first started, I was like thinking, well, first of all, Henry had long hair, which was a change. He was in a pair of shorts now, barefoot. And I just remember thinking, I think this might be out of tune. I think they need to tune up. But halfway through the set, I realized that I was witnessing something that was exceptional and really going to change. Well, it definitely changed the way I felt about music. But I would go on to argue that My War is basically the blueprint for grunge. Side B. You listen to songs like Beat My Head Against the Wall One More Time and Three Nights. Those are super heavy duty grunge songs. That's like, when you listen to Bleach, those guys were kind of trying to capture that. And Kurt Cobain loves that dissonant leads like Greg Ginn. They don't quite make sense. Like if you looked at it, I'm not a technical musician, but I imagine that they're breaking all the rules. Greg Ginn's leads are so odd, and a lot of Kurt Cobain's were. So yeah, when I heard that, I just really loved the fact that I think I might have been getting a little bit tired of hardcore, because the boot tap boot tap boot tap boot tap boot tap was, after a couple of years of that, I was like, all right, maybe I need something else. So when I heard the My War album, and especially the song My War, changed so much for me. Do you remember when you heard it?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of different levels with Black Flag. Well, the first time I was introduced to the music was in the Repo Man movie.
Oh yeah.
They were the song "Life of Pain" was in that, and then I went down and I tried to find one of their records, and I bought the Family Man album, which is like spoken word and instrumentals. And I was like, I didn't know, how are you supposed to know these things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm in high school listening to this stuff in my room, and I'm just like, man, this is like, I don't know. I don't know if I like this or if I don't like it. I don't know how I feel about this, And then there was where I grew up in New York State, we were on the border of Connecticut, and there was a radio station, a college radio station called WXCI. And they had, a hardcore punk show, and they had like the Metal Shop, which played like Bathory and Venom and all that stuff. And I heard Black Coffee by Black Flag. And I was like, it sounded to me like fast Black Sabbath, and I was just starting to get into like out of heavy metal and into like the more punk stuff, because, I was like playing guitar, but I wasn't good enough to play like Judas Priest songs or anything like that. So like, oh, this is like this Black Flag stuff. It's like, I could play this. I could play the Ramones. I could play, stuff like that. And just the feelings of like frustration of being a suburban teenager, and the loneliness, the alienation, like all that stuff just seemed to be encapsulated more so in Black Flag's music than it was in any of the other bands I was listening to at the time. And ever since, with those three things, Life of Pain from the Repo Man soundtrack, the Family Man spoken word instrumental record, and hearing Black Coffee on a radio station like in the middle of the night, like those three things converged on me, and that's set me off like on my like starting a band, and the way I approached music, and just kind of the way I started doing things was really tied into those experiences.
Yeah, they really captured rage so well, like teen angst, teen rage. Black Flag really nailed it. I have to just add about Black Flag is their label SST that they ran, and the fact that a label, out of Redondo Beach and that kind of music found this kid in upstate New York in 1982 is kind of unbelievable. And it didn't just find me, it found you, it found a lot of other people. And this is before the internet. So it's all, it's all just, it's amazing how that happened. and it came from their relentlessness. Like they were relentless. They were like Chinese water torture, and they were kids. And so, like, even though we're not kids anymore, we completely use the SST model in our filmmaking, which is we're gonna do it. We're gonna be relentless. We're never gonna stop getting in the van. You know, it's like, and we'll play the tiniest theater. We'll play a closet. If someone's going to play our movie, we'll go and we'll watch it on a closet wall, or we'll play a big theater, just like SST, like those guys and girls, because there was girls involved. Kira was amazing. They were relentless, and they taught me a lot about just like completely believing in your art. And if you listen to their art, it's not very accessible. Like they really convinced a lot of people. They're just exceptional artists.
Did you know the band Blind Idiot God?
Yeah, the guy, one of those guys lives in Brooklyn, actually.
Oh, Andy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So his brother, I haven't seen him in years and years, but his brother was one of my great friends in college who introduced me to a lot of awesome bands like Bad Brains, and then his brother's band. Yeah. When you're just talking about SST, I mean, they were like an SST band and kind of obscure in many ways. You know, they were fun to see live. But one time I saw them in like town hall, like this nice, you know, and then I would also see them in like these dive places in, you know, the Lower East Side.
Yeah, I think he's playing drums in this band called Insect Arc now, which that's my friend Dana's band. And she just moved to Berlin actually this week, you know, and she plays she's like a multi-instrumentalist. She plays in the Swans and
Wow.
she was in Angels of Light, and Insect Arc is like her project that she does. And Andy, I think it's Andy, is the drummer from Blind Idiot God, is her new drummer. So
That's cool as hell.
Oh wow.
cool.
Well, they should have maybe a blind date with Aptera. You know, we just mentioned something real fast when because you were talking about my war, and then when I was in so maybe like in 1985 or 6, I had to do a presentation in English class, like a creative presentation, and the theme was war. And so I used it was like a total like audible, you know, oral presentation, and I used my war, fear, you know, let's have a war, and then institutionalized. I don't know why, because even though that wasn't about war, but it was like a battle between the family, and it was going back and forth. And I made this little mixed tape about it, and I don't know how they let that one pass.
That's awesome. My next one is pigs.
Completely never heard of this band before, which is cool. So yeah.
So we were at a festival in London, and we were getting interviewed by this terrific guy named Stuart Wright. And I always ask people, "Hey, what are you digging these days musically?" And he's like, I don't know. Try this band called Pigs. And first of all, I loved the name, so I was like, "Wow, that's great. I'm gonna check these guys out." And as the very first time I spun them, I fell in love with their sound and their energy and their music. And it is, to me, it's like Norwegian gods rolling across the sky. And it's had a huge effect on our music for our upcoming movie. It's just so driving, and he sings just so gutturally, but kind of like right on the money. You know, it's not like dissonant. It's just really exceptional. So, you know, this band, like if you want to listen, GNT is the song that you start with, at least I think. But they have a ton of great stuff, and they actually have a hilarious video. Is the video for GNT? I think so. It is. If you get a chance, you got to watch the YouTube video for GNT. Okay. It's like, it's kind of, he wears the midsummer like flower hat, and it's like it's actually really well done. So yeah, they've had a big, we've been spinning GNT a lot with Zelda. Zelda loves it, Toby loves it, and we've all felt like, you know, we want that to influence heavily what's coming out now with Where the Devil Roams, our kind of like singular sound that we're hoping to put out. So the last song that were you gonna say something?
Well, no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'd never even heard of them before, and I was checking it out. I was like, yeah, this is something I want to dig deeper into as well. So yeah, I mean, I'll check out that video too, like you were saying.
What did you think of GNT?
It's cool. It was like a heavy psychedelic sort of thing. Like I got like more of like a psychedelic feel out of it.
And what's cool is their build up to it. It's like the kind of intro to that song is it starts out kind of like you say, it's a little psychedelic, it's a little spacey, but when they kick it all in, it is a monster truck rolling down the road. Actually, speaking of truck fighters, have you ever listened to Truck Fighters?
Oh yeah. Those guys are cool. I just heard about them just a few months ago, actually.
So we love Truck Fighters too, and in a sense, they're in the same world as Truck Fighters.
Kind of like Slow Mosa too.
Yes, like Slow Mosa. Like I don't know. It's kind of feels like where stoner rock has gone. Like stoner rock, like the original stoner rocks, like Caius and like Fu Manchu. They got more of a fuzz riff vibe. And that Southern California kind of laid back stoner vibe, like Sabbath. But these new bands like Slow Mosa, Pigs. I love where they're going with it.
Me too.
And my last band, it's funny, I'm going all things that have had a big effect on kind of my life is Suicidal Tendencies, I Saw Your Mommy. And the reason I wanted to pick this one is I got turned on as a kid when I heard this by the horror of it. This was a horror song. This is a song that was really vicious and hilarious at the same time, which can be so fun about horror films. It's like, why do you laugh? Well, I don't know. I laugh a lot at things that are horrible. I hope other people do. But, when I heard this song, I laughed because it was just like kind of vicious, kind of horrible. But it was also, this was the first band that I had heard, crossover from like basically combine hardcore and metal.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
An exceptional guitarist who could rip these insane rock metal leads. But then at the same time, they could stomp down the best hardcore I'd ever seen. And, so I know Institutionalized is the one that everybody, that's the big one that made them famous. But I think the whole album is really exceptional. Like I can go back and listen to it and I don't have to skip over anything.
Yeah, because it's so to the point and it's actually a pretty short record too, the first Suicidal record. And I mean, the magic word is crossover, because I mean, they're credited with being like one of the first crossover bands, the metal, thrash metal, hardcore crossover, like that whole thing with like DRI and Suicidal. And I always like Suicidal a little bit more than DRI though, honestly.
I agree with you. I think I really respect DRI. I think they're a bunch of badasses, but Suicidal was phenomenal. I saw them a bunch of times. Every time I saw them, they put on an amazing show. Coming from the East Coast, there was like, I wasn't used to kind of that gang look, that gang mentality. So it was like, I saw it. It was tantalizing because it was scary. I wanted to go see these guys because I was like, they look like real freaking gang guys. I also love that they were multicultural.
Yep.
They weren't just a bunch of white dudes. They were in everything about them was cool to this kid up in upstate New York. So
yeah, they were definitely a scary band back in the 80s, like even the whole imagery with the skulls and just, like in my mind, like skulls were like a metal thing, and then when you saw you're like into punk and hardcore and it's like these guys like are into like death and, murder and stuff. It's like, it's weird,
But it also was scary because the back of their album had all the pictures of all the Suicidal shirts, and so they looked like a gang. And
yes.
I could tell, the way they were wearing their shit. It was like these guys are a gang, and it's like, yeah, there was gangs, but not like that in New York. Do you know what I mean? Like it was different, and so it was really fun for an East Coaster to check that out.
There was a book written about all of the California, like LA hardcore gangs.
Oh, cool.
I forgot the name. Disco's Out, Murder's In. That's the name of the book. Yeah. Yep. Feral House published it, and it's a guy who was a gangster was writing about all of the hardcore gangs from the 80s. You know, there's a ton of them apparently. And a friend of mine, you know, an older guy who was in LA, he was a singer in Final Conflict, Ron Martinez. I asked him, I said, hey man, do you ever read this book? Because you were there for all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, it's pretty accurate. You know, the guy obviously inflates like his own involvement in some of this stuff, but like the actual folklore of all the gangster culture there is, he's like, it's pretty much on point. So take it as a document of what happened in the early 80s.
Interesting though, because I think like one of the reasons I kind of drifted from hardcore in New York was because it did get super violent. It did get a little overrun with kind of like a little bit of skinhead like mentality, which, you know, all skinhead mentality isn't bad, but there's aspects of it that are just violent. So, and it doesn't really accept anybody outside of their image. And so I saw a lot of really dark ass kickings and a lot of like dark shit going down which made me see, punk rock was my chance to rebel against that stuff from my town in upstate New York. So when it really started to muddy the waters down in the punk scene in New York, I kind of like it became less fun. And it always seemed to me, and maybe I should read this book, it always seemed to me that bands like the Circle Jerks, even Black Flag, even though, you know, it seemed like the California hardcore scene had a little bit more, a bigger element of fun and inclusion in it. You know, I might be wrong. And then you have the bands from like Colorado, like 7 Seconds, who, you know, they were very inclusive. So within the punk scene, there was a lot of inclusion. So I should look at that because, you know, I always think of the California scene as a little bit more happier.
Yeah, I mean, you know, similar to that, like the punk stuff was what really got me into that. You know, I was more into like punk bands like X, you know, the Gun Club and, you know, the Ramones. You know, that was like my introduction. And then to me, like Black Flag and the Circle Jerks were punk bands, you know, but then I discovered what hardcore was. And I was like, I don't know about this. This is like, you know, this is kind of like, there's like all these guys, you know, with their shirts off and everything. And I was like, well, you know, X were like, you know, my girlfriend like turned me on to X. It was like all these like cool, like younger, you know, when I was a kid, like these girls that we knew were into like that music too. It wasn't just like guys, you know, and it was like a very macho kind of vibe, which I wasn't really into, you know. So hardcore has never really been my thing, honestly.
That's why I drifted from hardcore. And it's funny because as I drifted from hardcore, I moved out to Seattle, Washington. And that was the perfect place to land because that's when kind of grunge was just starting to happen. So it was like, it had all those elements of punk that I liked, but it also had the laid back kind of feel that the Seattle grunge bands brought to music, you know. It was a perfect place to land.
Wow, so you guys have lived all over then, you know, Seattle, New York City.
We lived in Topanga Canyon in Los Angeles for 6 years. Yep.
Seattle was a great place to be, and I was there from 86 to 90, and so like I saw Nirvana, I saw the band to see was Mudhoney. Like,
oh yeah,
there was nothing better than a Mudhoney show, nothing. And talk about fun, you know, and terrific fuzzy rock.
And another Melvin's connection.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Matt Lukin from Mudhoney played in the Melvins briefly.
I was gonna be on my list too, and it didn't make the cut today. But I love Mudhoney.
I remember.
Have you heard Green River, which is the band before?
Yeah,
that band's pretty awesome and kind of unsung. Like a lot of people don't remember them, yet it has all these famous guys in it.
Well, when I moved out there, they were the heroes. Like they were the biggest band, Green River, and they had a song called "Swallow My Pride." No, "Swallow My Pride," and it was like, and I think the big band Soundgarden covered it, but the original version is excellent. There's an EP put out by Green River that's really terrific, and that's
I think Sub Pop. Yeah. Sub Pop collected the EP and the LP and put it out on a disc. That's what I have. I don't have like the vinyl of those records. And they're a great band. wish more people knew about him, you know.
Yeah, it's funny that
I
they
love
don't
them.
because the music's really well. I mean, it's slightly kind of roughly recorded, but the riffs are there
that.
and the singing's there, and it's got a feeling that's just terrific.
It's almost like if you took Aerosmith and the Stooges and like smashed them together, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thanks, guys. That's awesome. And you know, for everyone that's listening, can you just kind of run down like, you know, where people can check out what you know, the movies or any kind of like landing page or social media links or anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, our website is wonderwheelproductions.com. And then we got the band website is just about to go live, and that's hellbender.com, but the E's are 6s. And actually, Hellbender, the band, we've got the vinyl that's coming out that Ship to Shore is putting out, Ship to Shore Phonoco, pretty soon. And
but we're on Spotify and iTunes.
Yeah.
But all like Toby said, all the E's are 6s with the Hellbender. And then on Instagram, we're adams.family.films, and we love talking with people, and we love getting new music sent our way and just talking art.
Well, once again, I could probably go on for another 3 hours talking to you guys. But thanks for joining us. And yeah, this is great. And good luck with everything. And have a nice weekend. And when this goes up, I'll send you guys a link.
Thanks so much for having us. So much fun.
We'll see you. You play live, so that's on our.
We're going to be going back on tour in November, and I can't announce it yet because you know, it's not, you know, they get upset with you when you announce things before they're you know, before they're ready to have it announced. But we'll be playing in New York, and I have the date, but I forgot what venue. I think it's either at Irving Plaza or Gramercy, like either one of those places.
That's where we met.
We met at
You know what? That's what I remember that from when you guys were on the last drive-in. So
Yeah.
there you go. Maybe you'll be in Irving
We'd
Plaza.
love to see you there.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Good
I'll
for
send you guys some stuff. You know, like offline. I'll
Please.
put a package together if you some vinyl. If you guys are into vinyl and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, nice
care.
conversation, buddy. Peace.
Bye-bye.
Prediction lives in my brain, with me every day, drives me insane. I feel in my heart that if I had a gun,